I'm Lisa and I'm an addict.
What we're talking about today, hi Rodney. What we're talking about today is the introduction to NA meeting of Narcotics Anonymous. We're going to talk about this meeting. It's run every Monday. It's run by the Fellowship Development team of the Ontario region. So Fellowship Development does a whole bunch of really cool stuff. So they do the helpline that a lot of people use in the early days of their recovery. They do this cool thing called the mentorship program. So if you ever get into a service position you don't really know how to do, you can reach out to mentorship and they'll get you like a service sponsor who can teach you kind of the ropes. They do a whole bunch more stuff, and Brian has some pamphlets that tell you all, there you go, show and tell, that tell you all about what Fellowship Development does. Lisa and I do this meeting that is exactly what it sounds like. It is an introduction to Narcotics Anonymous. It is a lot of people's first NA meeting. It's a half hour long, so it can be less intimidating. And it tells you all about what NA is, how it works, what you'll see in your first meeting. We're going to run through the slides for you guys, and then we want your input. So we want to hear what you guys think would have been really helpful to know in the beginning of your recovery. So we're just kind of going to jump into it, unless Lisa has anything to add.
No, not at all. So basically what the slides look like is we go over NA basics. We do virtual and in-person meetings with the differences between them. There's a section here where we ask them if they have any questions, and then we do the member share, where we have two people that usually, male and a female, that will usually share for 5-10 minutes on what their experience has been with NA at the beginning, and then we have another question and answer period.
So we start with the NA basics. We talk about different readings and what they mean. We don't actually read the readings. We talk about the content of it. We talk about how every single one of these readings comes from the NA basic text. That's why there's a picture of the basic text at the beginning. I like to talk about how they're all different colors just because it's fun. We talk about how the information in the next few slides is the basis of the NA program. So we start with who is an addict. So an addict is a person whose life is controlled by drugs. Our lives and thinking were centered around getting and using drugs. We live to use and use to live. And we have a disease whose ends are always the same: jails, institutions, and death. Oh my. Something I really like to center in these slides is that NA focuses on the disease of addiction, not a specific substance as being the problem or anything, any particular drugs, but the disease of addiction and the drugs being a symptom of that disease, being our solution to the spiritual malady we had, and how the disease of addiction is what we really focus on in the program.
Yeah. Next one is, what is the NA program? So as you guys know, this is one of the readings that is done at our meetings. So we basically, can't read sideways. Basically, we're talking about we are addicts in recovery who meet regularly to help each other stay clean. I usually focus here that it only takes 2 people to do a meeting. NA is a program of complete abstinence from all drugs, including alcohol and marijuana or cannabis. There's only one requirement for membership: the desire to stop using. But keep an open mind and give yourself a break. Our program is simple and it works. And I usually add in here, from my experience, that when I came in, I tried to complicate it, because that's what I do. And I had to realize that it really is very simple.
Yeah, there's different ways to talk about each one of these slides, and every time we kind of go through it, depending on the day, you can really focus on different things. Something that always comes up for me is how no one gets to tell you when you're a member, only you do. The fact that the only requirement for membership is the desire to stop using means that we decide when we are members. No one gets to decide that you aren't a member anymore or you no longer qualify. That is an internal decision, right? So how it works, NA is a program based on 12 steps, and those 12 steps are written in the order they are meant to be worked. They aren't in a random order. They aren't just thrown together. NA is always one addict helping and understanding another addict. There's no professionals. We all are equal. We're all on a level playing field. Everyone has something important to say. When we use drugs, we release our addiction all over again, and one is too many and 1,000 is never enough. I tend to put a little bit of emphasis on any drug. It doesn't have to be your specific drug of choice. Any mind or mood-altering substance can start that tumbleweed all over again. And really how the steps are written in the order they're meant to be worked has become a focus.
What we do here, just to let you guys know, Oliver and I don't do the meeting at the same time. We alternate weeks, so there's usually only one of us there with the newcomers. So I like to focus on step one, and that we admit that we are powerless over our addiction and that our lives have become unmanageable. So that, for me, is really important, focusing on the fact that we admitted that we were powerless and that our lives were unmanageable.
When it comes to the spiritual, not religious program, I always mention that the word God does show up in the literature, but that it doesn't have to be a scary word, that NA doesn't associate with any religious ideologies or any specific religion. Even though the meetings are in churches, we just rent the space. And that what we mean when we talk about a spiritual program is that we talk about spiritual principles, and that's how we kind of base our recovery. And then we talk about honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness being the foundation of a lot of different steps. Some people have questions about this. It doesn't come up a lot, but when there is, it can spark some pretty cool conversations. I've had a few people bring up, what if I don't believe in anything? And then that can kind of prompt some pretty interesting conversations.
Virtual versus in-person meetings. Virtual and in-person meetings. Meeting information. So what we cover, you can go on to the next one, it's okay. What we cover is accessing meetings, how meetings work, and the suggestions that are used.
So these slides are, I think, the most crucial slides when it comes to getting to meetings, because they really are step-by-step how to get there. This is a recent edition. It's the virtualna.org. It's literally just a screenshot of what it looks like when you get on there, because people ask about how to get to virtual meetings. So I show them this. I tell them basically what all the information on here is, how to click on a Zoom link, and we go through all of this, and the next few slides are all about the ORCNA meeting list, how to find their city, and how to see if it's a Zoom meeting, how to see if it's an in-person meeting, open or closed meeting, and the differences between those, and then more information about the ORCNA website. We talk about the helpline, a little rundown on how to find meetings, something that a lot of people don't know. If you text your postal code to the helpline number, it will give you a list of, like, a text response of the meetings that are closest to you. So if you're ever going on a trip or you're staying at a friend's house, you can text their postal code, and it'll tell you which NA meetings are closest to that address. So that's something I tell to a lot of people in the meetings, because it saves a lot of hassle. So the helpline has also been a recent addition. Then we go back to NA literature and how to find it. We talk about the pamphlets that are available on the ORCNA website and how to get there, and the NA World Services website. There's a lot of literature that you can access on here. There's audio versions of the basic text, and a lot of it's there for free, so it's really good to kind of know where those resources are and where to find this literature, because it is the foundation of the program. And then we jump onto how meetings themselves work.
When we get into how the meetings work, I usually hear explain that a meeting is opened with a non-denominational prayer. And then we get into the volunteers, and I refer back to the 8 readings at the beginning, and that's the literature that's read. I get into that the key tags are handed out. We'll get into key tags afterwards. I tell them that they'll ask if there's any announcements from the floor, NA related, and then there's a sharing portion. And if they don't want to share, all they have to say is, my name's so-and-so, and I'd like to pass.
We added a slide with a picture of the key tags because I think it's really important to kind of point out that there is a welcome key tag, that when you go to your first meeting, you will be kind of welcome to the meeting because you are the most important person in the room. Talk a bit about what it means to be a newcomer in the meetings.
Virtual meeting guidelines. This is a slide that I think is really important because some people that come into the Zoom meetings aren't used to them. And there's a difference between the virtual and the in-person. So some meetings may be non-smoking or vaping, so they suggest that you shut off your camera if you're smoking or vaping, and to please keep distractions to a minimum. We suggest that you turn off your video if you're eating or moving around or browsing on your phone. No recording of the meeting in any way, and this protects anonymity. And also to protect anonymity, it's recommended that you be in a private place or use headphones. And I also, when I start the meeting, ask everybody to mute themselves, so that way there's no distractions while we're going through the slides.
And then we get into the meeting guidelines for virtual and in-person meetings. We talk about how an addict is always, a meeting is always one addict helping another. We try to kind of focus on the fact that NA is run by addicts for addicts. It was created by addicts for addicts. We talk about how there's a time limit to meetings and a time limit to sharing in some meetings. So we try and share once. We try to use drug of choice or non-drug specific language. And we explain this a little bit if it comes up. And we explain what crosstalk means, because I had no idea what crosstalk was when I first showed up to a meeting. People said, no crosstalk, and I didn't understand. And talk about how it's commenting directly on other people's shares and why that can be harmful. And then we jump into suggestions.
So some of the suggestions that are put out there are to join a home group, get a sponsor, and attend 90 meetings in 90 days.
And these can be heard a lot in the first, bit of your recovery. So we think it's important to highlight them. I try to explain what a home group is, why it's important in my recovery, and how to find a home group. We also do the same thing with sponsorship. So what a sponsor is, why it's important to have a sponsor, and how to find a sponsor.
Oh, sorry. If they're having trouble with the idea of a sponsor, we also put in there a slide on the temporary sponsor. And the temporary sponsor could help them through the process of actually finding a sponsor. They could walk them through going to meetings. They could help them through the process.
Yeah, and then we say, if anybody in the meeting has a year clean or more, we invite them to put their number in the chat if they're willing. So usually it's the facilitator, and sometimes our speakers will have more than a year clean. So we put our numbers out there, and sometimes people actually reach out. And then the 90 meetings in 90 days, pretty self-explanatory. I think we've probably all heard that. Attending 90 meetings in 90 days and why it's important and how it builds that community and builds that foundation and builds those connection with other people in the program. So that's our presentation. That's what we go through every Monday. Usually here is where the speakers come in, share a bit about their experience, their strength, their hope of the program, why it's changed their life, why it's impacted them. This is where we really want your input. Now that you've seen what we go through every week, is there anything you think would be beneficial to add to the presentation at all? You don't have to come up if you don't want to. We have paper and pencils. We also have a notepad at the back. But if you are willing to come up and talk about what was beneficial to you in the beginning of your recovery, that would be awesome.
Yeah, we really want to hear from you guys. So I'm going to step aside. So if anybody's got any suggestions.
Take a minute to think. Because there was a lot that we were thinking about for a bit and just recently added. We recently added the virtual NA slide. We recently added the helpline number. And we recently added the key tags picture. Because I would just pull out my actual key tags, and like that felt like a lot of planning to have my key tags around. So those were things that we thought about adding. I'm just now realizing that I need to update the Orskna page because it still has a lot of virtual meetings. Because that screenshot was from COVID days, so something to change. Yeah, come on.
I think, when I first came into the program, my first time right away, you hear the steps, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to grab a hold of it. But I've been relapsing over the years. And I think a big thing for me was just, I kind of learned it eventually, but just find somebody you can share with them. I think that was the biggest thing for me, was finding somebody like I could talk with. And I realize now, after some time, people relapse, and I'm genuinely, I care when they come back. It's like, man, it's good to see you. And I always thought that was just people were just saying that, yeah, sure, when they were saying that to me, but I actually get it now. People are happy to see you, when you disappear, because I think you're dead. And I don't know, just find somebody and share. I think that's the biggest thing. It's intimidating. I have to hear people say, oh, getting a sponsor, if you're not going to do that, at least get a sharing partner.
Right.
Maybe we could add that to the temporary sponsor thing.
Yeah.
Somehow.
It's a temporary sponsor. It sounds intimidating. It's a real commitment.
Yeah.
But just finding somebody you can share with, I don't know, it's baby steps.
Yeah. I think that's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
Finding someone to share with and connect with. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. When you guys go over the sponsorship service meeting portion of that, when it comes to service, do you guys go into when you guys are explaining this to newcomers, do you explain to them all the different ways of service? Just because I find that lots of newcomers, when they hear service, it's been intimidating, but they don't realize that even set up or take down can be they don't realize just the level of service.
Yeah.
They automatically assume that they're going to come in and have to chair a meeting or do a speaker, do a talk or whatever.
Yeah.
So when I talk about when I'm on this slide, the joining a home group slide,
Right.
I talk about how my first home group was where I started doing service. My first service work was putting out tables, putting out chairs, and that was really where I met the people who are really close to me now, and they helped me build that foundation. But I talk about how my service now, the one I the things I do the most are at my home group, which I think is really important, highlighting that service does come in many forms, right? Yeah. Thank you for your question.
Thanks.
Anything?
Where do you guys do this? Where do you guys present all this?
Do you want to take
Do
it?
we have a website? Can you pull it up on your computer? No?
It's a virtual meeting.
a
It's on
virtual
Zoom.
meeting. It's on Zoom.
All right, so you guys aren't in a a certain town doing this. Like it's
No.
No,
Zoom, okay.
it's all of Ontario and Manitoba.
Gotcha.
So it's on the
The
Ontario.
Ontario Regional website, if you go
Okay.
down to newcomer meeting,
Yeah.
because it's all done virtually, click
Okay.
on there. We're always looking for speakers
That's cool.
or
Yeah, so if you feel called to service, the clean time requirement to speak at this meeting is 6 months
6
right
months,
now.
yes.
And I was told very early on that it is the most bang for your service buck, because it's a half-hour meeting once a week. If you're speaking, then it's usually once a month. And you really are sharing with people who have never been to an NA meeting. You can use all the cliches, all the sentences, all the taglines you've heard so many times,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah,
just
it's
think
their
you're a
first time
genius.
hearing
They really think you're a genius. They're like, where did you get that? And really, you just heard it.
So every week, one of you guys would host it,
Yeah.
going through the slides, and then you find another member that would speak at the end for a few minutes. On
Yes.
their
a
story,
male and a
or
female on their experience with NA.
Kind of okay.
Yeah, so usually it's we have kind of a rotation we go through of speakers. They will come to the meeting, they'll sit through the meeting. The meeting's only half an hour, sometimes 45 minutes. We have anywhere in between, sometimes we have one newcomer, one time we had 11 newcomers. And the slideshow can take as long as it needs to, but the speakers usually take 5 minutes each. They'll share what NA has done for them, how it has impacted their life, and the message from them can be the same for 3 weeks, and then it's totally different because something huge happened in their life, right?
Cool.
So it's really cool to kind of see them grow as they keep speaking for this meeting. But we have a couple speakers who've been doing it for a while now. Yeah.
Have you guys been doing it for a while now?
I've been with the meeting for 3 years now.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think I've been doing it for about a year now.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That's pretty cool commitment. Just saying, like, it's
I
something that's
enjoy it.
consistent. Yeah.
I enjoy the interaction with the newcomers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Been there.
So this actually brings us to the next thing we wanted to talk about was, that's perfect, why we do what we do. The reason this meeting came around was during COVID. I wasn't there in the beginning, so I can tell you why I do this. The reason I love this meeting so much is because you can tell when newcomers come into the meeting, cameras off, mics muted, they have no idea what they're really doing here. They don't know why they're there. They just know that they're looking for something new. They need support. And we are there because we want to help. So I usually, welcome people into the meeting. The speakers, we kind of know each other now, so we're chit-chatting. And as the meeting goes on, sometimes you see cameras turn on and lights turn on. And by the end, some people have questions and they're willing to talk. And I had a really cool experience, I think about 6 months ago, right when I was getting a little, tired. And I had a meeting one Monday. It was me and one newcomer. I had no speakers, so it was just the two of us. Went through the slides, and I was like, hey, if you're interested, I can share a bit of my story. He was like, sure. So I shared a bit of my story, and the meeting ended. I think it was the next week I was at my home group. A kid comes up to me, he's maybe 19, and he's like, hey, I don't know if you recognize me. My camera was off, so you wouldn't. But I was that guy at the newcomer meeting last Monday. And the only reason I'm here is because of that meeting. I really wouldn't have come because it was always scary. And we talked for a bit, and he joined my home group, and we talk consistently. And every time I see him there on Wednesdays, I give him a hug, and I'm just like, you remind me why I do service, right? So that meeting has really become a very big part of my recovery because it reminds me every week why I'm here is because people were there for me. Seeing that happen and seeing people show up is incredible.
Yeah.
This meeting is a huge part of my recovery, and I really love it. And now this kid who comes to my home group is a constant reminder of the impacts that service can have. He's got like 30 days clean now, so that's pretty huge. And yeah, keeps coming back, and that's the purpose of this meeting, right? So Lisa, you want to tell us why you do it?
Actually, Brian approached me and was saying, I'm looking for a new facilitator. And I'm like, okay. And I thought, yeah, all right. So it kind of, I do it now just because I love to see the newcomers coming into the meeting and the light in their eyes when they kind of go, oh, there is something that I can do. For me, I really love seeing all the newcomers coming in, and some of them come back to weekly meetings, like they'll come back to it the next week, and maybe Oliver will have an interaction with them that week. I've noticed repeat keep coming back, which is good. So yeah, I really like to educate people how they can get through the system of Zoom.
Yeah.
Because that's a scary system to a lot of people. And finding your meetings on Zoom can be kind of, how do I do that? Like we were walking, Mike was walking somebody through how to find North Bay meetings last week. Because the poor guy's like, how do I use Zoom? And we're like, go here and go here. So I just like to be able to offer the program to new people coming in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is probably the way I can see the impact of service the most closely, right? I am hoping that Brian is willing to come up and talk a bit about the meeting and why it started, and a bit about fellowship development for a couple minutes.
Sure.
Thanks, Brian.
No problem. Thank you guys. I'm Brian. I'm an addict.
Hey, Brian.
So we were brainstorming at the Ontario Regional Service Committee a new way of doing service, and we came up with this idea of having a fellowship development team that would meet online. That way we, could save money. We didn't have to meet in person. We could meet however often we wanted to. And this was pre-COVID. This was just before the pandemic. And so when the pandemic hit and meetings and service committees started shutting down, we already had this framework for a new team, fellowship development online. And so we were ready to go. And so one of our first meetings, it was basically a brainstorming session of what are the problems right now facing, our fellowship, facing the addict who still suffers, and what are some solutions that we can realistically provide. And one of the problems was, how do we reach the newcomer when we can't invite them to our in-person meeting, when we can't go into institutions like we were able to before? It was a really hard time. It was like it was a triple threat because, everyone was on lockdown, so we know isolation is terrible for addicts. The government said, here's $2,000 a month. And, a lot of the drugs that people were using were even further tainted because of the border, right? And so it was like a triple threat. And we knew that we still had a primary purpose to fulfill. And so one of the things one of our members brought up was, why don't we have a newcomer-focused meeting? And I remember the first time I heard this guy suggest it, I thought, what the fuck is he talking about? A newcomer focus, like every meeting is focused on newcomers. Like I was very closed-minded at first to the idea, but then when he started explaining his vision, I was like, this is actually exactly what we need right now. Just a really quick introduction to Narcotics Anonymous, and then we found some volunteers, we put some slides together, and we put it on our website. So we're instantly able to meet the needs of the addict who still suffers. Also, family members and loved ones of addicts would often show up and say, my son, he's using, and it's a problem, what can we do? Professionals would show up, and even some treatment centers would attend virtually. And that's another thing to keep in mind, is that because this meeting is online, there are no geographical boundaries. And so, anyone in Canada, anyone in the world basically can tune in and find out what Narcotics Anonymous is in a really quick, succinct way. And it's also a tool that we can use in our H&I efforts, in our PR efforts. Like if you live in a different area in Ontario or even another province, you can, include information about this meeting in your correspondence with them. Like print off a poster, give it to them to put up in their treatment center or their detox or whatever facility it is. And so every single meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, but every single time this meeting have met, there's been at least one newcomer.
Oh, yeah.
So keep in mind, this meeting was started during the pandemic lockdowns. And so at least hundreds of newcomers have come into Narcotics Anonymous through the introductory meeting. And the experience that Oliver shared about, meeting somebody online and then meeting them in person also happened to me. And that's something you never forget. And so, some people here I've noticed are really interested in this meeting. So we always have room for more volunteers, more speakers, more facilitators. And like I've said, it's the best bang for your service buck. And that's just one of the work groups of Fellowship Development, which does a lot of really cool things. You'll notice at this convention that every main speaker will have an ASL interpreter, and that's due to our accessibility work group. And so we're doing a lot of really cool service, and there's always room for more support. So if you have the time, if you can make a little bit more time, I encourage you to get involved with Fellowship Development because we need you. Thanks.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, FD is fun. Just so you know, our business meetings are really cool. Very quick, very simple. No fighting. Yes. So this is the introduction to NA meeting. You've officially been introduced to Narcotics Anonymous. How does it feel? Woohoo! We love it. Yeah. So if anybody is interested in speaking and volunteering for as being a part of this meeting, you can talk to me or Lisa. We have a little WhatsApp group chat that we kind of work through because we have volunteers all around Ontario. So we can't really just see each other at a meeting and say, hey, you free this Monday. But if you are interested in being a part, there's an email on there that I check every day. So please feel free. We love seeing new faces, love hearing new stories. So that's our meeting. We are finishing early. When does that ever happen at a convention, eh? Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming.
I'll go get Rodney.
You want to close in a circle?
Up here.
We got space.
Scott coming back. For a small group. Yeah. Let this circle represent what we can't do alone, but we can do together. We'll follow that with the third step prayer.
Guide me in my recovery, show me how to live clean.
Keep coming back, it works and works, so work at your heart.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Rodney, disconnect.
Why would you be involved in,
Thanks, Brian.
the mentorship? Like,
You got
that? Yes, I do.
email on there.
Okay. I just started, I took a position in my area. I'm alt secretary. But we also have a new secretary that has all of background in it. So nice, right? Well, I also just got elected my secretary in my home group too. So yeah, it's awesome. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
This
What's your home group here?
GFT in Rig. Cool. Thank you.
Ciao.
That was awesome, guys.
I was so nervous.
Yeah, reach out to the